This is something of a fiasco, what Russia is doing to Europe now. We'll cut the oil supply to anyone who supports a price ceiling. So the oil and gas prices have jumped. We know that Greece is one of the countries that is keeping a cost level, because the government is subsidizing people who have a very low income. They're subsidizing their energy and electrical costs because otherwise they can't survive. There are people that can't afford to pay their, as we said, mortgage and rents, and they're being evicted and thrown into the streets. So Russia now is against using this tactic to go against the whole of Europe. There are other countries who are also putting up a ceiling on energy and electricity prices, trying to subsidize the weaker of their societies. And Russia says, the countries that are putting a ceiling on this in this way, we are going to cut the energy supply to them. So this is ridiculous. This, I don't know where this is going, but people just can't survive like this. Russia will cut the supply of oil to anyone who supports the ceiling. So oil and gas prices, once again in Greece have jumped, and other countries as well in Europe. Russia will cut the supply of oil to anyone who supports the price ceiling. Russia warns that any country that supports the oil price cap will automatically have an embargo on it. So it's worrying for Greece. It's that the government supports the imposition of a ceiling on Russian oil. And even more worrying is that our country sources significant grades ranging between 10 and 20% of its total oil needs from Russia. Russia President Putin warned that there will be serious consequences if a cap is placed on the price of Russian oil, as many countries prepare to announce their decision on the matter. Such actions are contrary to the principles of trade relations and will likely lead to serious consequences for the international energy market, Putin said in a phone call with Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani. But the representative of the Kremlin, Dmitry Peskov, characteristically stated today, November 24th, Thanksgiving Day, that Russia plans to stop supplying oil and natural gas to countries that support the imposition of a ceiling on the price of Russian oil. The Group of Seven G7 is considering imposing a ceiling on Russian seaborne oil at $65 to $70 a barrel, although the governments of European Union member states have not yet decided on the price, and talks are expected to continue. Until now, we stand by President Vladimir Putin's position that we will not supply oil and gas to the countries that will set the cap and participate in the cap, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told a daily conference caller with reporters. But we have to analyze everything before formulating our position, he said. The Kremlin also denied that its attacks on Ukraine's power grid targeted civilians, but said Kiev would stop the suffering of its population by meeting Russia's demands to resolve the conflict. Well, what they're doing here, cutting off the oil and supplies to countries that are putting a cap, of course, they are making populations suffer. The populations of Europe, they're making suffer. Now, the Kremlin spokesman said that there were no strikes on social targets. There will be non-special attention is being paid to this. As for the targets that have direct or indirect relationship with military forces, there are consequently subject to strikes, he said. Asked how the suffering of Ukrainian civilian populations reconciles with the positions of President Putin, who has said that Russia does not wish to destroy Ukraine or its people, Peskov said, the leadership of Ukraine has every opportunity to bring the situation back to normal. It has every opportunity to resolve the situation in such a way as to fulfill the demands of the Russian side and consequently put an end to all the suffering of the population, he said. The Russian military today denied it carried out strikes on Wednesday in Kiev, saying the damage in the capital was caused by Ukrainian and foreign anti-aircraft missiles. Now, meanwhile, Russian Foreign Deputy Minister Sergei Ryabkov said contacts with the United Nations Security Agency at the Russian-held Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in Ukraine had been constructive. The head of the UN International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, met with a Russian delegation in Istanbul yesterday, Wednesday, to discuss security at the station, the site of which Ukraine and Moscow accuse each other of bombing. Sergei Ryabkov also said that Russia does not plan to contact the United States and did not take the initiative to contact Washington at the G20 summit in Indonesia. Ryabkov added that contacts with Washington are made by phone, but they take place through diplomatic channels and not at the level of presidents. In another development, Russia's Federal Security Service, the FSB, said today that it prevented Ukrainian special services from carrying out what it describes as a sabotage of the South Stream gas pipeline. As a result of a series of investigative measures, the FSB prevented an attempt by Ukrainian special forces to commit an act of sabotage and terrorism on the South Stream gas pipeline that supplies energy sources to Turkey and Europe, the FSB said. At the moment, it's not clear to whom the gas pipeline was mentioned by the FSB. South Stream originally intended to carry Russian gas under the Black Sea to the Bulgarian coast, was abandoned in 2014 in favor of Turk Stream, which reaches Turkey and can supply gas to Hungary and Bulgaria. This is from Pro News. I've translated this for you from a Greek article. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.